Across the vastness of Russia, beyond its famous cities, iconic rivers, and epic histories, lie places so remote, so otherworldly, that even many Russians have never heard their names. These are landscapes where nature reigns with untamed authority, where ancient cultures whisper through forgotten ruins, and where the hand of time has carved wonders too surreal for fiction. This is a journey into the overlooked, into the unseen. These are the places in Russia you've never seen before. Across the lands of northern Russia, where ancient forests breathe cold mist into the dawn, lies a place few have walked and fewer still have understood. The region of Karelia, carved by glaciers and veiled in myth, holds within its heart a secret of stone and silence, the Roskilde Marble Canyon. Once, this place echoed with the clamor of pickaxes and chisels. It was the 18th century, and beneath the moss-draped canopy of Karelia's coniferous woods, the Russian Empire unearthed a treasure, pure white marble, veined with subtle hints of gray and green. From these very cliffs, stone was cut and sent by barge and sledge to build the opulent palaces and cathedrals of St. Petersburg. Here, beneath the surface of the earth, a new kind of empire was born, not of power, but of art. But time passed, the work stopped, and the canyon, once defaced by industry, was abandoned. Nature, ever patient, began her quiet reclamation. Today, the Roskilde Marble Canyon is unrecognizable from its quarrying past. The gashes cut into the bedrock have filled with spring water, forming a crystalline lake that glows a deep, impossible turquoise. The walls of the canyon, streaked with veins of marble, rise sharply from the water, their reflections mirrored in perfect symmetry below. In summer, light filters through the leaves and dances across the stone. In autumn, golden birch trees shimmer like firelight above the water. And in winter, the canyon transforms entirely. Icicles hang in clusters from every ledge, like crystal chandeliers. The water freezes into glass, locking the past beneath a surface as clear as memory. Beneath this frozen lake lies a second world, an underwater labyrinth of tunnels, shafts, and passageways carved by centuries of mining. Divers, wrapped in thick neon ring, descend into the silent blue world with nothing but torchlight to guide them. The marble glows beneath their beams. Air bubbles rise and shatter silently against the frozen ceiling. And above, tourists stand quietly along the canyon rim, unaware of the cathedral of stone and ice below their feet. But Roskilde is not just beautiful, it is ancient. The marble itself is over 2 billion years old, a sediment formed in the Precambrian seas, metamorphosed by the furnace of tectonic pressure. To touch it is to place your hand on the bones of the earth itself. Legends, too, cling to these rocks. Locals tell stories of the White Woman of the Canyon, a ghost said to walk the waters on moonlit nights. She appears dressed in linen, her face veiled, her hands trailing over the surface of the lake as if searching for something or someone long lost. Whether born of imagination or deeper truths, these tales echo with the melancholic beauty of the place itself. Yet perhaps what makes Roskilde most unique is its contradiction. It is both a wound and a sanctuary, a scar left by men, now softened by the hand of nature, a monument to what was taken, now transformed into something freely given. Few know of it. Fewer still have stood in its silence and felt the stillness that only marble and memory can hold. Beyond the canyon lies the broader region of Karelia, a borderland between Russia and Finland where history drifts like mist through the trees. This is a land of more than 60,000 lakes, each with its own character, each fed by glacial waters so clear they reflect not just the sky, but the soul of the land itself. And within Karelia, the Marble Canyon is a rare gem, a quiet heart pulsing with the echoes of centuries. Visitors can glide across its surface by boat, their oars barely disturbing the glassy water, or descend into the old mine shafts with helmet and headlamp, stepping carefully through tunnels where miners once swung picks by lantern light. Some come for the history, others for the adventure, but most leave with a feeling they cannot quite name, a sense of something ancient and deep and unmoved. In the evenings, the air grows still, the forest hushes, the lake reflects the stars, and in that silence, Riskila speaks. It speaks not in words, but in water and stone, in layers of time compressed into mineral memory, in the quiet breath of birches, the creak of ancient ice, the wind threading through empty mine shafts. It is not a place you simply visit. It is a place you listen to. And for those willing to hear, it tells a story older than empires, a story of beauty reclaimed, a story of stone made sacred once more. Far in the untouched expanse of western Karelia, away from highways and habitation, rises a hill that defies explanation, a geological enigma, a spiritual magnet, a place whispered about with unease even among those who live nearby. This is Mount Vadavar. It rises just 417 meters above sea level, not high by any mountain standard. Yet what it lacks in altitude it more than makes up for in atmosphere. For this is not just a hill. It is a landscape unlike any other in Russia, perhaps the world. And once you arrive at its summit, it becomes impossible to shake the feeling that you have stepped into another dimension. The first thing one notices is the silence. It is not the peaceful stillness of a quiet forest, nor the lazy hush of a mountain breeze. This silence is charged, electric, the kind of silence that feels like it's listening back. Then the trees appear, twisted, burnt, broken. Hundreds of stunted pines with skeletal branches and charred trunks stretch into the sky like the arms of drowned men. They bend and spiral with unnatural contortions, as if reaching for something long gone or resisting some ancient force. Scattered among them are the stones, thousands of them. Massive granite boulders, some as large as cars, perched in impossible balances, some teetering on the tips of smaller rocks, others stacked with geometric precision. Dolmens, altars, tombs, cairns. The effect is hypnotic, unreal. It feels as though you've walked into a place where human hands never should have been. And perhaps, some say, we weren't the first. Archaeologists have puzzled over the stone formations atop Vadavara for decades. While some insist they are natural, caused by glacial activity or tectonic shifts, others point to alignments with the sun and stars, to repeated geometric ratios, to deliberate placement that defies chance. Could they be remnants of a long-lost culture? A prehistoric temple? A sacred site for forgotten rituals? The Sami people, native to the Russian north, believe this mountain is sacred and dangerous. Known among them as a place of death, Vadavara was used for shamanic rites and burial ceremonies. It is said the spirits of the dead still walk its slopes, and those who come here without respect may never truly leave. Even modern visitors report strange phenomena. Compasses spin without reason. Electronics glitch. Time seems to stretch or contract. Some speak of nausea, others of euphoria. Most agree on one thing. Something about Vadavara feels deeply unnatural. Yet despite its mysteries, or perhaps because of them, the mountain draws people. Hikers, photographers, spiritual seekers.
scientists.
All come in search of something they can't quite name. They hike the long trails through mossy forests, crossing wetlands and navigating root-choked paths. The climb is not easy. The terrain is rough, the signage nearly non-existent. But those who reach the summit are greeted with a view that stretches far across Karelia, a sweeping panorama of forest, lake, and sky. And then the silence wraps around them again. There are no visitor centers here, no fences, no roads, just the wind and the stones and the sense that you've wandered into an ancient secret. At sunset, Mount Vadovara becomes almost unbearable in its beauty. The sky turns orange and violet. The stones cast long, crooked shadows. The twisted trees burn in the last light of day. And the entire mountain seems to hold its breath. You feel as though you are not alone. That something ancient is watching. Not malicious, not welcoming, simply present. Some camp overnight on the summit, eager to see the stars from one of the clearest skies in European Russia. Others descend quickly, their nerves fraying under the weight of unseen eyes. All leave changed. Vadavara is not a place of answers. It is a place of questions, a monument to the unknown, a wound in the landscape that has never fully healed. Whether a relic of shamanic rituals, a geological curiosity, or something far stranger, it challenges every assumption we hold about nature and ourselves. No brochure will prepare you for it. No photo can truly capture it. You do not visit Vadavara to see, you visit to feel. And when you leave, part of you stays behind, in the stones, in the silence, in the mountain's memory. On a slender ribbon of land that floats between the Baltic Sea and the Kyrenian Lagoon lies one of the most peculiar and quietly baffling forests in all of Europe. A place that makes scientists scratch their heads, folklore whisper in circles, and visitors pause mid-step in disbelief. This is the Dancing Forest. Hidden within the Kyrenian Spit, a 98-kilometer sand dune that Russia shares with Lithuania, the Dancing Forest is a botanical oddity, a mystery without consensus. Here, in a small grove surrounded by more normal pines, the trees twist and twirl like drunken dancers frozen in time. They bend into rings. They spiral upward in corkscrews. Some loop in full circles, others split and rejoin like braided vines. It's as if some invisible force reached down from the sky and stirred the forest with a great wooden spoon. At first, it seems like an optical illusion, but the closer you get, the stranger it becomes. The trees really do grow this way. Their trunks loop and twist for no obvious reason. There are no cliffs to explain stress fractures, no constant winds, no visible disease. Just trees that seem unwilling or unable to grow straight. Foresters and scientists have studied the grove for decades, proposing various theories. One popular explanation suggests the distortion may be due to the movement of the loose sandy soil combined with the young sapling's sensitivity to uneven growth patterns. Others point to caterpillar infestations during their formative years that affected hormonal balances and stunted straight growth. And yet, none of these theories fully explain the uncanny uniformity of the twists, nor why it happens only in this one section of the spit. Local folklore, as always, has its own ideas. Some say the forest was cursed by ancient pagan rituals performed on these sands long before Russia or Lithuania existed. Others whisper of buried energy, ley lines, magnetic fields, something unnatural drawn to this thin strip between the land and sea. There's a tale still told by older residents of nearby towns of a couple who were to marry but died tragically in a storm. Their love was so strong, the trees themselves bent to dance in sorrow or joy at their eternal bond. Still others claim the loops were formed intentionally by German foresters during the 1930s for experimental furniture wood, but this too is contested. No records survive. No definitive answer stands. The forest dances. No one knows why. Walking through it is like stepping into a sculpture garden designed by nature and madness. The forest floor is soft with pine needles, the air filled with the faint, briny scent of the nearby sea. Sunlight filters through the branches in golden shafts, casting shifting patterns on the ground. Children laugh and climb on the trees, their curved trunks forming natural loops and hoops. Photographers kneel and hikers speak in hushed voices, unwilling to disturb whatever spell might linger here. And sometimes, if you stand very still, it really does feel like the trees are moving, slowly, gently, as if caught mid-step in an eternal waltz. The dancing forest sits within a protected national park, and the Kyrenian Spit itself is a UNESCO World Heritage Site, praised for its rare ecosystem, its migrating sand dunes, and its delicate balance between land and water. But of all the wonders along this narrow peninsula, the windswept beaches, the drifting dunes, the ancient pine groves, it is this single grove that draws the most curiosity. A place barely a few hundred meters across, and yet powerful enough to make you question the laws of nature. It's easy to forget how fragile the region is. The Spit is a living, shifting landscape. Sand dunes wander slowly under the push of wind, swallowing forests, revealing old roots, reshaping the very shape of the land. Villages once built here have vanished beneath the dunes, their rooftops now buried beneath meters of sand. And amidst this constant movement, the dancing forest remains, still twisting, waiting. Some visitors come expecting a tourist attraction and leave with a sense of unease. Others come seeking answers and find only deeper questions. But everyone who walks among these trees leaves with the same truth. There are places in the world that do not want to be understood. They want to be felt. And so the trees dance, silently, slowly, on sand that shifts beneath them, under a sky that remembers stories long since forgotten. Not everything in nature grows straight, and sometimes the crooked path is the most beautiful of all. In the vast expanse of Russia's Far East, where the winters last for most of the year and the land rolls endlessly under snow and sky, there lies a town you won't find on most maps. A town with no lights, no sounds, and no people. A town that once lived with purpose and now exists only in memory and ruin. This is Katakin. It is not just abandoned, it is fossilized, preserved by cold, forgotten by time, and surrounded on all sides by the kind of emptiness that presses on the soul. The story of Katakin began with coal. Built during World War II by Gulag prisoners in the Magadan Oblast, the town was designed to serve one purpose: fuel the Soviet machine. It grew in isolation, hidden deep in the Kolyma region, a place synonymous with exile and endurance. The winters here were not just cold, they were punishing. Temperatures could plunge below -50 degrees Celsius. Winds howled like ancient spirits across the tundra. But Katakin thrived in its way. By the late Soviet era, more than 10,000 people called it home. They lived in sturdy apartment blocks built from concrete and necessity. They worked in the nearby coal mines, raised children, watched films in the cinema, attended school. There were shops, schools, hospitals, everything a town needed. And then it stopped. After the fall of the Soviet Union, the town, like so many across the Russian interior, began to fade. The mines became unprofitable. In 1996, an explosion in one of them killed 6 people. That was the breaking point. The state declared the town unlivable and ordered a complete evacuation. People were relocated. Buildings were left standing. Heat was turned off. And just like that, Katakin was frozen in place. Today, walking through its wide, empty streets feels like wandering through a dream or a nightmare. Windows stare blankly from cracked facades. Rusted playgrounds creak in the wind. School books lie open on classroom desks, their pages yellowed but untouched. In one apartment, a dinner table is still set for a meal that never came. Clothes hang in closets. Toys rest on beds. Dust covers everything, softening the edges, blurring the line between past and present. Nature is reclaiming what remains. Birch trees grow through floorboards. Snow seeps in through broken roofs and settles in drifts across kitchen tiles. Birds nest in traffic lights. The forest is moving back in quietly, steadily, without resistance. The silence here is oppressive. It's not just the absence of noise, it's the overwhelming presence of what used to be. You feel it in every room, in every hallway, in the echoes of footfalls that should not be alone. This is not a ruin reclaimed by glory or decay. It is a ghost still dressed in the clothes of the living. And that is what makes Katakin so profoundly unsettling. Unlike other abandoned towns, it was not destroyed by war or fire. It was not consumed by disaster. It was simply left behind. And in its stillness, it holds up a mirror to time, to what happens when progress forgets its footsteps. Photographers, urban explorers, and filmmakers have found their way here, drawn by the sheer surrealism of the site. But few stay long. The isolation is total. The cold penetrates even the best gear. There is no cell signal, no running water, no heat, just the long roads in and out, covered in snow and silence. And yet, even in this desolation, Katakin whispers. It speaks of children who once sled down icy hills, of miners who drank tea in the cafeteria before heading underground, of families who gathered to watch films on Soviet holidays, of joy and struggle, routine and resilience. Its voice is quiet, but it lingers. Perhaps what's most haunting is how ordinary Katakin still feels. It is not some ancient ruin. It is a modern town, empty but intact. The kind of place you could imagine waking from a strange dream to find people walking the streets again, heaters buzzing, radios playing in kitchen windows. But no one comes back. There's nothing left to come back for. And so it remains, tucked away in the folds of the Klima wilderness, a frozen footprint in the snowdrift of history. If you ever go, don't go looking for answers. You won't find any here. What you'll find instead is stillness. And that stillness will ask you its own questions. What do we leave behind when we leave a place? And what does the place leave behind in us? In Katakin, the past hasn't moved on. It waits, patiently, quietly, beneath layers of frost and ash. Not haunting, not hiding, just there, enduring, even in absence. In the heart of Siberia, where the landscape is defined by endless taiga, frozen rivers, and snow-laden forests, there exists a contradiction so striking that it borders on the surreal. A place where golden sand dunes ripple under a sky framed by snow-capped mountains. A place where camels do not roam, but larches and pines stand centered at the desert's edge. This is the Chara Sands, a desert nestled in ice. At just 50 square kilometers, it's small compared to the world's great deserts. But what it lacks in size, it makes up for in shock value, because it shouldn't be here. And yet, it is. Located in the Zabaikalsky Krai, near the Chara River and the Kotor Mountains, the Chara Sands feel like something misplaced, as if a piece of Central Asia accidentally drifted north and anchored itself in the Siberian wilderness. The dunes here are classic in form, high, sharp-crested, wind-sculpted. They rise and fall like golden waves frozen mid-motion. Barkarn dunes, they're called, crescent-shaped, always in motion, migrating across the earth with the steady persistence of time. But instead of being surrounded by scorched plains and arid plateaus, the dunes are flanked by snowfields, boreal forests, and alpine peaks. It's as if the Sahara collided with the Arctic. And the result? Otherworldly. The origin of this Siberian desert lies not in fire, but in ice. At the end of the last ice age, as glaciers retreated and ancient lakes drained, they left behind great deposits of sand and silt. Over thousands of years, prevailing winds gathered and sculpted this sediment into the undulating dunes we see today. The surrounding mountains and valleys form a natural wind tunnel, sustaining this miniature desert in a cradle of stone and frost. But the Chara Sands are more than a geological curiosity. They're a microcosm, a unique ecosystem that defies classification. Here, you'll find large trees growing improbably close to the dunes. Tiny alpine flowers bloom and spring among patches of sand. Insects and birds flutter across a horizon that stretches from golden dunes to icy peaks in a single breath. The contrast is so stark it almost feels artificial, like a painted backdrop in a surrealist dream. Visiting the Chara Sands is not easy. The nearest village, also named Chara, is remote even by Siberian standards. Reaching it requires hours of travel by train or plane, followed by off-road vehicles or a serious hike. There are no paved roads to the dunes, no lodges, no safety rails, just wilderness and wind. And yet, each year, a handful of photographers, adventurers, and researchers make the journey, not for luxury, but for the singular sensation of standing in a place that seems to defy every rule of climate and geography. You can walk the crest of a dune in a t-shirt under a summer sun, then gaze north at a mountain still covered in snow. Your footsteps may briefly mar the sand, but the wind will erase them within hours, restoring the surface to its untouched perfection. At night, the temperature drops dramatically. The stars above the dunes are impossibly bright, unmarred by light pollution. Silence settles like a second sky, and you're left with the odd, humbling feeling of being somewhere that shouldn't exist, and yet does, persistently, beautifully. The locals, descendants of Evenk peoples and settlers from Soviet times, speak of the desert with quiet awe. To them, it is not just a natural wonder, but a sacred anomaly, a spirit land. Some believe the sands are alive, moving purposefully. Others say the desert sings at night, when the wind combs across the dunes like a bow across strings. Even Russian scientists, after years of study, admit there is still much they don't understand. The Chara Sands are stable, yet moving, isolated, yet thriving, cold, yet blooming. It's as if all the extremes of Siberia condensed into one small patch of land, manifesting not in struggle, but in harmony. And maybe that's what makes it so compelling. In a world growing more predictable, more mapped, more explained, the Chara Sands remind us that mystery still lingers, that contradictions can be beautiful, that nature still writes poetry we cannot fully read. To stand among those golden waves of sand, with snow on your boots and spruce trees at your back, is to feel what it means to be astonished, truly, deeply astonished. It is not a place you can describe and be believed. It is a place you must see, and even then, you will wonder. Because here, in the belly of the Siberian wilderness, a desert dreams quietly, unbothered, unchanged, unknown. Far in the southeastern corner of Siberia, where Russia brushes shoulders with Mongolia, Kazakhstan, and China, rise the mighty Altai Mountains. This range, whose name is believed to come from the Mongolic word Altan, meaning golden, is anything but tame. Its peaks are sharp, snowbound, and remote. Its valleys are deep, dark with forests and legends. And hidden within this wild embrace lies a valley most travelers will never see. This is the Agtru Valley, an ancient sanctuary of ice, stone, and silence. To reach Agtru is to undertake a pilgrimage. There are no paved roads to speak of, no bus stops, no rail lines. You must first reach the isolated village of Kare, already far removed from most of civilization, and then continue onward by foot or rugged vehicle. The terrain is unforgiving. The trail is rough. The journey tests more than just endurance. But once inside the valley, something changes. The world narrows. The noise fades. The sky opens. And in that silence, you find the beginning of something rare. The Agtru Valley is a corridor between peaks, flanked on either side by sheer ridges and rocky escarpments. But the true treasure here is the ice. The Agtru Glacier System, comprising three main glaciers, Small Agtru, Big Agtru, and the Baby Glacier, is among the most studied and revered in Russia. These are living glaciers, slowly moving, breathing sheets of ancient ice that have sculpted this valley for tens of thousands of years. They grind down mountains, carve deep basins, and give birth to rivers of astonishing clarity and force. Step onto one of them, and you're walking on time itself. Compressed snowfall from centuries ago lies frozen beneath your boots. The ice creaks, shifts, moans softly under pressure. It is not dead. It is ancient and awake. Scientists have long used Agtru as a natural laboratory. Its accessibility by glacial standards makes it ideal for studying climate change, ice dynamics, and alpine ecosystems. For decades, researchers from across Russia and the world have camped here in modest wooden huts and research stations, monitoring melt rates, weather patterns, and the slow migration of the glaciers. But you don't need to be a scientist to be humbled by this place. Climbers ascend to the summits of the surrounding peaks, Agtru Peak, Kupol Three Lakes, Karatash, each offering panoramic views that defy vocabulary. From above, the glaciers glisten like polished silver veils, draped across the shoulders of the mountains. The sky here seems closer, more profound. The clouds race by like whispers from another time. And below, far below, lies the forested floor, spruce and larch clinging to steep slopes, alpine flowers blooming defiantly in bursts of color, and rivers carving deep canyons through the stone. There are no crowds here, no fences, no lights, just wind and ice and time. And perhaps that is why so many who visit speak of Agtru not just as a destination, but as a spiritual experience. The valley is quiet, but it is not still. Things move here, but slowly, thoughtfully. Even the birds seem to fly with intention. Eagles will overhead. Pikas scurry between rocks. Ibex appear in silhouette against the snow. And always the sound of water, trickling, rushing, echoing, reminds you that life persists, even here. In summer, the sun casts long golden light across the valley floor. The grasses shimmer, the glaciers glow, campfires crackle in the thinning air. But in winter, the valley belongs to silence. Snow falls in sheets. The glaciers swell and deepen. The trails disappear, and the only visitors are the wind and the stars. Photographers who brave this season often describe Agtru as an ice cathedral, a place where even the moonlight seems to bow in reverence, where each breath becomes visible, where even time seems to slow its pace. For the Altai people, the indigenous communities who have called this region home for centuries, these mountains are sacred. They do not climb the highest peaks. They do not name the tallest summits. To them, these are the abodes of spirits and ancestors. The glaciers, in particular, are seen as ancient beings, repositories of wisdom, keepers of memory. And standing there, with the cold seeping into your bones and the sky pressing close, it's hard not to agree. There is something here, something old, something that does not care whether we understand it or not. Atru is not a tourist site. It is not convenient. It is not easy, but it is real. It is one of the few places left where nature still operates at full scale, unmoderated, undiminished. A place where the earth remembers its own story and tells it through rock and ice, silence and wind. To stand here is to be reminded that beauty does not require comfort, that awe is often found on the edge of exhaustion, that some sanctuaries are made not of walls but of wildness. Here, where glaciers breathe slowly in the high Siberian air, Actra waits, not to be seen, but to be felt. And once you feel it, you will never forget it. In the vast blue sweep of Lake Onega, where the waters ripple like silk under endless northern skies, there floats an island that seems less built than dreamed. A place where wood rises like a prayer from the earth, where domes shimmer like silver scales, and where time moves not forward but in circles. This is Kiji, a sanctuary of craft, spirit, and silence. Just 6 kilometers long and barely a kilometer wide, Kiji Island is unassuming at first glance, but rising from its center, framed by fields of wildflowers and the lapping water, is one of the greatest masterpieces of wooden architecture in the world, the Kiji Pogos. Here, standing proudly against the northern sky, is the Church of the Transfiguration, an 18th century marvel with 22 domes, none of them identical, all crafted entirely from wood. No nails, no metal fastenings, just interlocking pieces of pine, spruce, and aspen, shaped by hand and spirit. Legend holds that the master builder constructed it using only a single axe, and when he was done, he threw it into the lake, saying, "There will never be another like it." He was right. To see Kiji is to see a miracle of patience and harmony. The Church of the Transfiguration rises in a cascade of domes, each crowned with a shimmering aspen shingle, each reflecting the light of the sun or the silver-gray melancholy of northern storms. It looks alive, like something grown rather than made. Beside it stands the more modest Church of the Intercession, used in winter when snow blanketed the island and the great summer church lay dormant. Together, they form a sacred duo, flanked by a slender octagonal bell tower whose spire reaches upward like a final note in a choral song. But the Pogost is only the beginning. Scattered across the island are dozens of wooden structures, homes, windmills, barns, chapels, all transported here from across Karelia and beyond, each one a testament to the ingenuity of the Russian North. Thick log walls notched perfectly without gaps, shutters carved with lace-like patterns, roofs steep to shed heavy snow. These were homes built not just to survive the cold, but to invite beauty into it. Walking through the island feels like slipping into a living museum, but nothing about it feels artificial or staged. Birds nest in the eaves. Grass sways in the breeze. Smoke sometimes curls from the chimneys of preserved houses. This is not a monument. It is a memory made visible. And in every board, every corner joint, every carved crossbeam, you can feel the hand of the craftsman, not just working, praying. But Kiji is not just a feat of engineering. It is a spiritual place. For centuries, this island was a remote yet vital hub of Orthodox Christianity. Monks traveled across frozen lakes to pray here. Pilgrims rode for days, braving wind and water, just to catch sight of the domes. And even now, when the bells ring out over the lake, their tones drifting across the water like echoes of old liturgies, something stirs deep inside. A sense that this place, this wooden marvel built in a wilderness, connects us to something older than time. The island changes with the seasons. In summer, it blooms, wildflowers carpet the meadows, bees hum, and the lake mirrors the sky. Visitors arrive by ferry or hydrofoil, walking slowly, reverently, through the wooden lanes. In autumn, mist creeps across the water and the churches turn to gold in the slanting light. In winter, the snow comes deep and silent. The domes become ghostly shapes against a pale sky. The lake freezes solid. The wind carries the sound of your footsteps back to you. And through it all, the churches remain unchanged, eternal. Restoration has been meticulous. Experts in wood conservation have spent decades studying how to preserve without altering, how to maintain the integrity of structures made without a single metal nail. Every beam tells a story. Every panel holds a name. And the people, caretakers, artists, historians, treat Kiji not just as a historical site, but as a living being. A wooden heart, still beating, still remembering. It is easy to forget, in our world of steel and glass, what wood can mean, how it breathes, how it ages, how it carries the scent of time and smoke and faith. Kiji reminds us. It reminds us that beauty doesn't need permanence to be powerful, that even humble materials, logs and shingles, birch bark and pine tar, can be woven into something transcendent. It reminds us that devotion leaves traces, not just in texts or rituals, but in the way a window is carved, a dome is shaped, a beam is joined. To leave Kiji is to carry a quiet weight with you, the memory of domes gleaming in morning mist, the creak of old wood underfoot, the sense that even in the farthest corners of the world, the human spirit has built cathedrals out of trees and silence. And that some places, fragile, remote, impossible places, hold within them not just beauty, but grace. There is a place in Russia where the earth breathes, where the ground hisses, rumbles, and steams, where rivers boil and the air smells of sulfur and thyme. This place is hidden deep within the volcanic cradle of Kamchatka, a peninsula of fire at the far eastern edge of the continent. Here, in a remote canyon carved by the Geyzernaya River, lies one of the largest geyser fields in the world. This is the Valley of Geysers. Kamchatka itself is wild in every direction, a land of over 300 volcanoes, 29 of them active. The air is thick with mist and mystery. Grizzly bears roam its rivers. Sea eagles cry over black sand beaches. But even in this primeval landscape, the Valley of Geysers feels exceptional because it moves, it pulses, it breathes. The valley is just 6 kilometers long, but within that narrow canyon lives a world unlike any other. More than 90 geysers and countless hot springs at the hillsides. Jets of superheated water erupt skyward every few minutes, some soaring 20 meters into the air. Steam pours from fissures in the rocks. Pools bubble with colors borrowed from dreams, turquoise, ochre, emerald, painted by heat-loving algae and mineral deposits. Each geyser has a name, a rhythm, a character. There's Velikan, the giant, which erupts like clockwork with explosive force. There's Fontaine, the fountain, a graceful spray that dances in arcs. And Malakitovi Grot, a grotto of surreal green mist and mineral walls. To walk through the valley is to feel the world alive beneath your feet. The wooden boardwalks, necessary for both safety and preservation, curve along the steaming riverbanks. Beneath them, boiling springs gurgle like ancient voices. The ground is warm to the touch. The air is damp and fragrant with sulfur, moss, and heat. This is Earth without its mask. Raw, restless, reverent. Discovered only in 1941 by local scientist Tatana Ustinova, the Valley of Geysers remained virtually unknown for decades due to its isolation. Even now, access is limited. There are no roads. Visitors arrive by helicopter or endure a multi-day trek through bear country and volcanic terrain. But those who come are rewarded with a spectacle that rivals Yellowstone or Iceland, yet remains untouched by mass tourism. Here, the geysers erupt not for the crowd, but for the sky, and the silence between eruptions is just as powerful as the blasts themselves. Then came the landslide. In 2007, a massive mudflow altered the valley forever. Entire sections were buried. Some geysers were lost, others changed course. For a moment, it seemed the valley of geysers had been silenced. But nature, always patient, adapted. New geysers appeared. Steam vents reopened. Life returned. And in that transformation, the valley taught its greatest lesson. This is not a museum. It is a living system, always changing, always becoming. Scientists continue to study the valley, fascinated by its geothermal plumbing, networks of subterranean water heated by magma, pressurized, then released in magnificent blasts. Every geyser is a message from below, every eruption a dialogue between stone and water. Thermophilic organisms, life forms that thrive in extreme heat, paint the rocks with vibrant microbial tapestries. Some of them may hold clues to life's origins. Others may help us understand how life might exist on other planets, where heat and chemistry replace sunlight and soil. The Valley of Geysers is not large, but it is deep in mystery, in power, in beauty. It is a place where you are reminded viscerally that we walk upon a living planet, that beneath our cities and routines, the earth still seethes with elemental force, that creation and destruction are not opposites, but partners in the eternal dance of geology. When the clouds lift and the sun glances through the steam, the entire valley glows like a vision, not of heaven, not of hell, but of something older than both, a place where the earth reveals its breath, and each exhale is a miracle. To the northwest of Russia, nestled against the border with Finland, lies a land shaped by slowness. A land where silence stretches for miles, where forests ripple like green oceans, and where water is everywhere, shimmering, still, and eternal. This is Karelia, a region not of grandeur, but of grace. It is here that the earth remembers how to be quiet. Karelia is vast and sparsely populated. Stretching across forests of pine, spruce, and birch, its terrain is marked by the legacy of the last ice age. When the great glaciers retreated, they left behind a world of hollows and hills, carved stone, and deep-bellied basins. Over millennia, these basins filled with the purest water, and a new geography emerged, a labyrinth of lakes, over 60,000 of them. Some are massive, like Lake Ladoga and Lake Onega, the two largest lakes in Europe. Others are small enough to remain unnamed, cradled in forest glades where the sky reflects so perfectly it becomes difficult to tell where the world ends and the water begins. To glide across a Karelian lake in the early morning is to enter a world untouched by hurry. The water lies glass flat, disturbed only by the dip of an oar or the call of a loon. Mists rise like breath from the surface. Reeds sway gently along the shore. The surrounding forest, dense, endless, stands reflected so precisely in the lake that the canoe feels as though it floats in air. And above, the sky moves slowly, as if reluctant to interrupt the stillness. But this calm is not empty. Karelia's lakes are alive, teeming with pike, perch, and whitefish. Otters play in the inlets. Beavers shape their architecture with unerring patience. In the air, eagles circle, scanning the shallows. And in the deep forest, unseen but ever-present, moose and bears roam, their movements barely disturbing the moss-soft ground. The human history here is just as deep. For centuries, Karelians, ethnic Finns and Russians, indigenous Sami and Betsian peoples have lived in rhythm with the land. Their villages, built of carved wood and perched beside quiet bays, seem like extensions of the landscape rather than interruptions. Wooden chapels rise along the lake shores, their onion domes reflected in the water like dreams. Windmills turn slowly in the breeze. And in summer, the white nights wash everything in a soft golden light that lingers until morning. Karelia has long been a place of retreat. In the 19th and early 20th centuries, poets, painters, and thinkers came here seeking inspiration. They found it in the layered greens of the forest, the purity of the lakes, and the timelessness of the villages. Even today, artists from across Russia travel to Karelia to reconnect with something elemental. They paint the waters. They write of the silence. They try, always in vain, to capture a land that refuses to be rushed. In winter, Karelia transforms. The lakes freeze over, turning to vast white fields beneath an ever-pale sky. Forests become hushed cathedrals of snow. Reindeer tracks crisscross frozen riverbeds, and the silence, already profound in summer, becomes absolute. But even in this deep frost, life continues. Fishermen bore holes in the ice, lowering lines into darkness. Fires crackle in log cabins as samovars hum. In the distance, the faint howl of a wolf carries through the trees. And above it all, the northern lights may appear, curtains of color rippling across the sky, mirrored perfectly in the ice below. Karelia does not impress with scale. It invites with soul. It does not demand attention. It rewards stillness. And those who wander here, who listen and linger, discover something rare, a part of the world that still honors slowness. This is not wilderness to be conquered. It is sanctuary to be entered gently. In Karelia, the lakes hold more than water. They hold memory. Off the northern coast of Russia, just below the Arctic Circle, where the White Sea stretches cold and steel gray to the horizon, lies an archipelago that has witnessed both holiness and horror, a place shaped by solitude, resilience, and relentless northern light. These are the Solovetsky Islands, more intimately known as Solovki. For centuries, they have stood as silent sentinels at the edge of Russia's spiritual and historical map. Remote, isolated, sacred. The largest of the 6 main islands, Greater Solovetsky, rises low and forested from the sea. At first glance, it seems modest, the scatter of trees, a windswept coast. But as you draw nearer, a massive stone silhouette takes form. The Solovetsky Monastery. Its thick, fortress-like walls and rounded towers reflect both its spiritual purpose and its strategic necessity. For this was no mere permanent. It was a sanctuary, a fortress, and, in time, a prison. Founded in the 15th century by Orthodox monks seeking isolation and divine communion, the monastery soon grew in both fame and power. It became a beacon of ascetic life, drawing pilgrims from across Russia and a center of influence in the Tsarist world. The monks here lived in harsh conditions, their days governed by prayer, labor, and silence. They carved out a sacred order in a land ruled by ice, storm, and scarcity. But Solovki's history is not only of piety, it is also of punishment. Under the Soviet regime, the monastery was converted into one of the first and most infamous prison camps of the Gulag system. The very stones that once echoed with chants now bore the cries of political prisoners and intellectuals condemned to isolation. The air grew heavy with suffering. Tens of thousands were sent here, writers, priests, scientists, revolutionaries, teachers. Many would never leave. Their graves are scattered among the lichen-covered rocks, unmarked but remembered. And so Solovki became a paradox, both a cradle of faith and a crucible of oppression, a sanctuary turned cell. Today, the monastery has been restored. The domes gleam once more. Services are held in the cathedral. Monks have returned. And yet, the island has not forgotten. It is impossible to walk its stone pathways, past its austere chapels and frozen harbors without feeling the weight of layered time. The echoes are strong here. They ride the wind and cling to the granite. The bells toll, and you hear not just worship, but mourning. The natural world of Solovki is no less striking than its human history. This is a land of sea and stone, of moss-covered tundra, pine forests bent by wind, and gray cliffs rising stark against churning waves. The White Sea is rich with marine life. Seals sun themselves on rocky outcrops, and beluga whales pass silently through the surf. Bird life is abundant. Arctic terns, eiders, and murres nest on the cliffs. The skies are full of motion, while the land remains still. In summer, the sun barely sets. The islands glow beneath the long light of northern twilight. In winter, darkness descends for weeks, broken only by starlight and the subtle shimmer of aurora borealis. But even in the deepest cold, there is beauty. The monastery walls frosted with hoarfrost, the forests blanketed in silence, the sea locked in sheets of translucent ice. Time moves slowly here, and not always forward. Pilgrims and travelers still come to Solovki, not just to witness, but to feel. They walk the paths once trod by saints and prisoners alike. They listen to the wind across the old barracks. They light candles in the cathedral. They leave changed, not by spectacle, but by silence. Because this is not a place of performance. It is a place of presence, a place where history breathes. To stand on the Solovetsky Islands is to stand at the intersection of beauty and brutality, of grace and grief, of sea, sky, stone, and soul. The land does not speak, but it remembers. And those who listen closely may hear it whisper, all that was is still here. Deep in the heart of Russia, where the Komi Republic's dense taiga meets the ancient bones of the Ural Mountains, a strange and solemn group of giants watches over the wilderness. 7 colossal stone pillars, weathered by time, stand silently on a windswept plateau. They are the Manpupuner, also known as the 7 Strong Men, or the Little Mountain of the Gods. Few reach this place. Fewer still forget it. Each pillar rises between 30 and 42 meters high. Carved by wind, frost, and rain over more than 200 million years, these formations are all that remain of once mighty mountains eroded to their roots. What the glaciers could not break, the elements slowly sculpted into obelisks, each with its own shape, texture, and aura. Some are slender and tall, like elongated spires. Others are rounded and massive, like ancient statues. One leans as if bowing to the earth itself. They stand in a line across the plateau, as if arranged by unseen hands. There are no signs, no markers, no fences. Just these monoliths, surrounded by tundra and silence. The journey here is not easy. There are no roads. Reaching Manpupuner requires days of travel, by snowmobile in winter or helicopter in summer. The path leads through unbroken forests, across rivers and ridgelines, through biting cold or relentless insects. But when you arrive, when you stand at the foot of these stone titans, all that effort dissolves into awe. Because this place is not simply remote, it is sacred. To the indigenous Mansi people, these pillars are not mere rocks. They are living spirits, figures from legend. One story tells of 7 giants who pursued a shaman across the land. When he reached the Urals, he turned to face them and raised his staff. At that moment, the sky split, the earth shuddered, and the giants were turned to stone, forever fixed in place, witnesses to their own defeat. That shaman's power still echoes in the land. The mountain upon which the pillars stand was named Manpupuner, which in Mansi means Little Mountain of Idols. To this day, local shamans consider the area sacred. Some refuse to ascend the plateau out of respect or fear. The pillars do not speak, but their presence is overwhelming. They command not just the landscape, but the imagination. They seem to contain stories, old as the wind. You feel them watching you as you watch them. There are no birds here, no trees, just moss, lichen, and the occasional whistle of wind through the grass. A haunting quiet, a primordial stillness. And yet, somehow, you are not alone. In winter, the Manpupuner are even more surreal. Snow clings to their flanks, wind sculpts frost into delicate patterns, and fog rolls across the plateau like a slow tide. The stone turns pale beneath the overcast sky, and for a moment, the pillars seem to disappear into the whiteness, ghosts of mountains long gone. In summer, wildflowers bloom at their feet. The air hums with insects, and the long Arctic twilight bathes the plateau in silver light. Still, the silence remains. This site is part of the Komi Republic's Pechoro Ilich Nature Reserve, a UNESCO World Heritage Site known as the Virgin Komi Forests. It is the largest virgin boreal forest in Europe, home to elk, bears, lynx, and wolves, untouched by industry, protected by distance, and at its center, these 7 stones endure. You cannot help but feel something when standing here. Not fear, not exactly comfort, but something deep, an ancient awareness, as if you've stepped outside of time into a space where the earth remembers its own beginnings. These are not just rocks. They are relics, witnesses, keepers. Manpupuner reminds us that mystery is not always meant to be solved. Sometimes it is meant to be stood before in stillness, because wonder is not found only in movement or scale. It is found in the places where questions outlive answers. And here, high above the forest, where the air is thin and the ground is old, the 7 strong men keep their watch. In the vast reaches of Lake Ladoga, the largest lake in Europe, where the waters stretch like a sleeping sea, there lies an island unlike any other. An island that has cradled faith through centuries of storms. A place where the air is thick with incense, pine, and prayer. This is Valam, not just a location on a map, but a spiritual world apart. An island that hums with reverence. The name Valam is ancient, its origins uncertain, perhaps from the Finnish Valamo, or from the Old Church Slavic meaning high place. And indeed, there is something elevated here, not just in landscape, but in spirit. At the center of the island rises the great Spaso-Preobrazhensky Monastery, its blue domes gleaming in the northern sun, crowned by a golden cross that has watched over Ladoga for more than 1,000 years. This is one of Russia's oldest monastic settlements, founded no later than the 10th century, possibly earlier. For generations, monks have come here not for retreat, but for transformation. They did not seek comfort. They sought stillness. The monastery itself stands like a fortress of serenity. Its stone walls enclose courtyards, chapels, gardens, and the echoes of liturgies sung over frozen ground. The interior is a mosaic of gold, shadow, and candlelight. Icons glow softly. Footsteps vanish into worn stone. The air feels thick with time. Services are sung in ancient chant, Snammity melodies that ripple like water, unhurried and holy. They fill the cathedral like mist, rising into the domes and drifting out through the open windows into the forest beyond. Even the silence between verses feels alive. Surrounding the monastery are the island's forests, tall pines and silver birch lining narrow trails that lead to hidden sketch hermitages, silent gardens, and small wooden chapels tucked between moss-covered stones. Each is a world of its own. Some are active, inhabited by monks in solitude. Others lie abandoned, overgrown by time, their walls softened by lichen and age. They are not ruins, they are resting places for prayer. And always, through the trees, comes the sound of water, lapping gently on rock like breath. Valam is not just one island, but a scattered archipelago of over 50 islands. Between them move small boats and larger ferries, carrying pilgrims, visitors, and monks alike. But there is no rush here, no hurry. Everything moves at the pace of prayer, even time. In summer, the white nights bathe the island in endless light. The monastery glows beneath an amber sky. Pilgrims walk barefoot along forest paths. The lake glistens with the reflection of domes. In winter, silence thickens. Snow falls like scripture. The lake freezes. The bells toll in slow rhythm, echoing across the ice to where wolves wander beneath bare trees. It is a season of contemplation, not survival, and Valam endures it with grace. The spiritual atmosphere is undeniable. Even non-believers feel it. It is not loud. It is not imposed. It simply is. A presence in the stones, the trees, the icons, and the wind. A stillness that enters the soul and does not ask to be explained. Yet Valam has known struggle too. It has been burned, bombed, abandoned. It has seen war, exile, and desecration. During the Soviet period, the monastery was closed. The chants were silenced. The domes rusted. But Valam did not vanish. It waited. And when the time came, the monks returned. The bells rang again, and the prayers resumed as if they had never stopped, only whispered deeper. To visit Valam is not to be entertained. It is to be quieted. It is to walk slowly through ancient woods, to kneel before an icon worn smooth by centuries of touch, to hear nothing but the wind and the trees, and perhaps the soft chime of a distant bell. It is to remember that there are places in the world where stillness is sacred, where the soul breathes differently. Valam is not hidden because it is remote. It is hidden because it cannot be reached by motion alone. It must be reached by silence, by humility, by the quiet yearning for something eternal. And so ends our journey. From deserts hidden in snow, to pillars of stone, to forests that dance, to islands that pray, Russia reveals itself not just through its power and vastness, but through its secrets. The places you've never seen before are not just beautiful, they are living stories. And in each one, the earth speaks softly, in water, in stone, in silence, and In the shadowed heart of the Altai Mountains, carved over millennia by glaciers and roaring water, lies a valley so dramatic, so untouched, it feels like the earth itself opened its palm to cradle something sacred. This is the Chulishman Valley, a place of tumbling waterfalls, wind-carved cliffs, hidden lakes, and rivers that seem to remember the sound of time itself. The valley stretches for over 130 kilometers, carved by the Chulishman River as it winds toward the southern edge of Lake Telitskor. Enclosed by towering mountain walls, the valley narrows and twists like a forgotten corridor into an ancient world. To reach it, one must cross the legendary Cathedrals, an uphaved serpentine road hewn from sheer rock, with switchbacks that cling to the cliffs in defiance of gravity and reason. At the top, the world opens before you, a wide, green basin ringed by jagged peaks and stitched with silver water. And once you descend, you enter a silence that is alive. The Chulishman Valley is more than beautiful. It's elemental. Here, stone and water are in constant dialogue. Granite cliffs rise straight from the riverbanks. Boulders the size of houses lie scattered like forgotten dice. The river is vast and clear, alive with trout and whispering reeds. And always there is motion of wind through grass, of clouds sliding along the peaks, of eagles circling in vast, silent arcs above. Water dominates this valley in many forms. From cliffside crevices pour countless waterfalls, some slender, others roaring with force. The most famous of these is Kirkyur, a 30-meter cascade that thunders into a rock basin with a force that shakes the air. Locals say its name means noisy or furious, and standing beside it, you understand. Misty, powerful, and sacred, Kirkyur is not just a sight, it's an experience. And yet, there are other falls, hidden, gentler, waiting just beyond the next bend in the trail. This land is still home to Altai herders, semi-nomadic families who graze sheep and horses in high pastures, their yurts dotting the slopes like memories. Their culture is interwoven with the landscape, their stories sung beside campfires under skies dense with stars. For them, the valley is not a spectacle. It is home. Each bend in the river has a name, each rock formation a spirit, each mountain a guardian. In summer, the valley blooms, wildflowers burst across the meadows, and the air hums with life. In autumn, the golden hues of larch and birch set the slopes ablaze. And in winter, the entire valley falls into a silence so profound, it's as if the earth is holding its breath beneath the snow. Few visit in that season. But those who do speak of frozen waterfalls that hang like chandeliers, of rivers glazed in glass, and of silence so complete it feels like music paused. There are no resorts here, no hotels, no paved trails. Just rough camping sites, old dirt paths, and the kindness of locals who offer tea and stories to those who arrive with open hearts. To walk through the Chulishman Valley is to move slowly, to be still often, to listen. You listen to the river, the wind, the animals, and the occasional voice carried from across a ridge. You begin to understand that this place doesn't need to be explained, it only needs to be respected. Some landscapes impress, others teach, but the rarest, like Chulishman, transform. Here, you are not a traveler, you are a guest, in the house of stone and sky and water. And when you leave, a part of you stays behind, woven into the silence of the cliffs, and the song of the river as it flows, as it always has, toward the waiting lake. In the remote Sakha Republic of northeastern Siberia, far from villages, roads, and the comfort of the familiar, lies a scar on the earth so vast it defies scale. A yawning, slumping chasm in the permafrost. A place that grows each year, as if the land itself is peeling away from time. This is the Bodhgaya crater. Locals call it the gateway to the underworld. Scientists call it a megaslump, but standing before it, it feels like something more. The crater is nearly a kilometer long, over 100 meters deep, and growing, widening, and lengthening with each passing year. It began in the 1960s when deforestation in the area exposed the permafrost to direct sunlight. As the ice-rich ground began to thaw, it collapsed, slowly at first, then with increasing speed. What was once stable, frozen Earth has become a sprawling, ragged pit, a kind of geological slow-motion landslide revealing ancient layers of Earth. It is not volcanic. It is not seismic. It is thermodynamic collapse, permafrost melting in real time. And in that melting, the land is telling its story. Bata Ghaika is not merely a curiosity. It is a phenomenon with global implications. Because as the permafrost thaws, it releases not only carbon and methane, potent greenhouse gases, but something more, time itself. Exposed in the walls of the crater are preserved layers of ancient soil, plants, and animal remains dating back tens of thousands of years. In essence, the Earth's memory is being unearthed, offering an unprecedented glimpse into the Ice Age world. Mammoth bones, ancient tree roots, even preserved DNA from ecosystems that have long since vanished. Paleoclimatologists descend into this surreal gorge to study its frozen walls, reading them like pages of a book buried since the Pleistocene. The deeper you go, the further back in time you walk. They find pollen from prehistoric forests, insect remains, even remnants of long-dead grasses and shrubs, tiny clues, gigantic insights. And as scientists work, the crater continues to grow. As global temperatures rise, permafrost across the Arctic weakens. Bata Ghaika is both a symptom and a signal of a warming world and the vast, irreversible consequences already underway. Yet despite its grim implications, the crater is starkly beautiful. From the air, it looks like a giant claw mark on the Earth, jagged, curving, dark. From the rim, its walls plunge steeply into shadowed depths, layers of sediment exposed like veins in a wound. The floor is a mix of mud, ice, and thawing debris. The air is often still. Birds circle overhead. There is no sound but wind and the soft, unsettling crack of ice loosening beneath the soil. Few visitors come here. The nearest settlement is hours away. There are no trails. No signs, just the open maw of Earth and the long echo of its collapse. The indigenous Evenki people have long avoided the site, calling it sacred, powerful, even cursed. They speak of it as a living presence, one that consumes, remembers, and warns. And indeed, standing at the edge, it's difficult not to feel watched, as if the land is aware of its own unraveling. In a world obsessed with progress, Bata Ghaika is regression made visible, a rewind of epochs. A reminder that the Earth, given enough heat and time, will reforge itself, often with little regard for those standing on its surface. But perhaps, too, it is an opportunity, a place where science and indigenous wisdom meet, where the past is not lost, but exposed briefly before disappearing again. To descend into the Bata Ghaika crater is to confront both wonder and dread. It is to walk between ages, to feel the breath of the Ice Age on your cheek and the heat of modern consequences at your back. It is a place of knowledge and reckoning. And when you leave, you carry with you not just data or awe, but a deep, silent understanding. The Earth forgets nothing. It only waits for the right moment to show us what we've buried. In the far reaches of Russia's Far East, nestled in the often forgotten corner of the Sea of Okhotsk, there lies an archipelago of profound isolation and raw northern beauty, the Shantar Islands. 15 wild, wind-battered landmasses suspended between the mainland and the endless sea. There are no towns, no ports, no permanent roads, only cliffs, whales, ice, and silence. For much of the year, the chanters are sealed off by thick pack ice. The Sea of Okhotsk, known for its brutal cold and dense fogs, keeps them hidden from all but the most determined explorers. Reaching the islands requires careful timing, small boats, or daring helicopter flights between weather windows. But for those who make the journey, the reward is not just remoteness, it is revelation. Here, the land remembers a world untouched. The coastlines of the islands are jagged and steep. Towering basalt cliffs plunge straight into the sea, their black faces streaked with waterfalls and colonized by nesting seabirds, puffins, kittiwakes, and murres. Above, the skies are alive with wings. Below, the ocean pulses with giants. These waters are among the richest in the Russian Far East. Beluga whales drift ghost-like beneath the waves, their white backs breaking the surface like disappearing icebergs. Bowhead and gray whales cruise the straits, following ancient migration routes through the frigid currents. Their songs, long, haunting, ethereal, echo through the deep. On land, the forests are thick with larch, spruce, and birch. Moss carpets the ground. Bears roam freely, fattening on salmon runs and crystalline rivers that cut through the islands like veins of melted glacier. But even in their wildness, the Shantar Islands exude calm. The kind of calm born from distance, from being too far for war, roads, or routine to reach. You feel it in the wind, sharp and salty, yet oddly clean. You hear it in the silence, so complete it magnifies every gull's cry, every splash of wave on rock. This is not a place of human stories. It is a place where nature has written its own, uninterrupted. The indigenous peoples of the region, especially the Nivk and Evenki, have long held the Shantar Islands in respect and caution. Some believe the islands are sacred, guarded by sea spirits and clouded in mystery. Others simply regard them as places where survival means deep knowledge and humility. Few have lived here, fewer still have stayed, but those who do know the patterns of wind and ice, of light and fog, of fish and whale, they read the currents like scripture and move with the weather, not against it. Scientists, too, are drawn here. The island's isolation has preserved ecosystems found almost nowhere else. Rare sea ducks nest in great flocks. Algae and plankton bloom in nutrient-rich currents. And the surrounding marine environment is a living laboratory for studying climate change. But the Shantars resist intrusion. Fog descends without warning. Winds can ground helicopters for days. The sea is always watching. In summer, the tundra explodes with life. Wildflowers carpet the slopes. The days stretch long, each hour washed in soft polar light. In winter, the world narrows to ice and shadow. The sea locks the islands in white. The air is sharp as crystal, and the silence deepens until it feels like a weight pressing gently on the soul. There are no tourists, no gift shops, only the rhythm of nature and the discipline of patience. To visit the Shantar Islands is to surrender comfort for wonder, to let go of schedule and signal, to be small, deliberately, joyfully, in the face of something vast and indifferent. And in that smallness, something profound emerges. Gratitude, stillness, a kind of peace you didn't realize you were missing. Here, where the edge of the continent frays into the sea, and where the whales swim past forests that know no roads, the Shantar Islands endure, not in spite of their isolation, but because of it. Beneath the rolling plains of the western Urals, in the Perm-Krai region, lies a hidden world, silent, submerged, and entirely without time. A place where divers move through darkness like drifting ghosts, where ancient mineral walls glow softly beneath torchlight, and where the boundaries between earth and water dissolve into dream. This is Orda Cave, Russia's greatest underwater labyrinth, and one of the longest submerged gypsum cave systems in the world. Stretching for over 5 kilometers, with nearly 5 of them fully underwater, Orda Cave is not just a geological wonder, it is a realm of surreal, almost alien beauty. Formed over millions of years through the slow dissolution of gypsum by underground rivers, the cave is a network of narrow tunnels, immense submerged chambers, and corridors so pristine they resemble art, and it is one of the clearest underwater cave systems on Earth. The water, filtered naturally through limestone and gypsum, is so pure that divers often feel suspended in air. Visibility stretches up to 50 meters, a clarity that adds to the dreamlike nature of the place. Diving here is not for the untrained. The passageways are complex. Some are wide and cathedral-like, others no wider than a doorway. Divers must maneuver through rock fissures, beneath overhanging shelves, into galleries with names like the Hall of Clouds and Twilight Zone. There is no natural light. Only the glow of lamps illuminating the swirling textures of white gypsum, the delicate formations like underwater frost, and the eerie stillness of a world untouched by wind or sound. In these depths, time seems suspended, movement slow, thoughts grow louder, even the air tastes ancient. Orda Cave is a place of contrasts. Above ground, the entrance is unremarkable, a quiet slope in the countryside near the village of Orda. But step below, and you are in one of the most extraordinary hidden worlds in Europe. The ceilings arch like the ribs of a whale. Stalactites drip into silence. Every surface bears the soft polish of mineral time, and yet, even here, 130 feet below the earth, there is a feeling of peace, not fear. The cave is not oppressive, it is enveloping, like a whisper from beneath the world. For cave divers, Orda is holy ground. It draws them from all over the globe. Some come to map its depths, others to photograph its lightless corridors, and some simply to feel the thrill of floating through a world few have ever seen. Russian cave diver and photographer Viktor Ligushkin famously captured the ethereal beauty of Orda, calling it a cathedral of stone and water. His images show divers gliding like wraiths through vast, moonlit rooms, each one more surreal than the last. His camera revealed what words often cannot, that beneath the soil of Perm lies a world of quiet revelation. Yet despite its grandeur, Orda remains wild. There are no lights, no tourist facilities, no railings or guides, only the cave, and those prepared to meet it with respect, skill, and silence. Geologically, Orda is a living document. The cave's white gypsum walls hold patterns etched by prehistoric seas, movements of subterranean rivers, and the breath of the planet as it formed and shifted. Microcrystals cling to rock like frost. Slow drips carve shapes over millennia, and the water, so still, so perfect, is not dead. It moves. It pulses through channels and pools, responding to seasons, pressure, and underground currents. Divers learn to read these shifts like moods in a being too old for words. There are risks here, of course. Equipment failure, disorientation, claustrophobia. But for those who train, who prepare, who enter with reverence, the reward is immense, a passage through Earth's forgotten corridors, a glimpse at a world both impossibly strange and heartbreakingly fragile. Orta is not a place that shouts. It whispers. It sings without sound. And if you are quiet enough, you may hear it. Not just the cave story, but your own reflected back in the still water, in the floating quiet, in the slow heartbeat of a world without clocks. On the edge of Europe, where Russia meets the vast semi-arid plains of Central Asia, lies a land unlike any other in the country. A place where temples gleam beneath the open sky, prayer flags flutter on the wind, and the scent of incense mingles with the scent of dry earth. This is Kalmykia, Russia's only Buddhist republic, a land of camels, sand, silence, and resilience. It's a place many Russians themselves have never visited, a place rarely featured in brochures or postcards, but it is one of the most quietly remarkable corners of the country. Kalmykia is the only region in Europe where Buddhism is the majority religion. Its people, Kalmyks, are descendants of Warad Mongols who migrated westward in the 17th century, bringing with them their language, their nomadic traditions, and their Buddhist faith. And despite centuries of hardship, exile, and suppression, that faith still stands. Literally. In the capital city of Elista, rising from the dusty plains, stands the largest Buddhist temple in Europe, the golden abode of the Buddha Shakyamuni. With white walls and golden roofs that catch the sun like fire, the temple is a monument not just to belief, but to endurance. Built in the early 2000s, it is modern but feels ancient. Monks in crimson robes walk its courtyards. Pilgrims spin prayer wheels, chant mantras, and light butter lamps beneath towering statues of the Buddha. Inside, silence settles like smoke. The main hall is filled with color, reds, golds, deep blues, and dominated by a 9-meter tall statue of Shakyamuni Buddha, his eyes calm, his hands resting in eternal teaching. And beyond the temple's gates, step, wide, flat, and wind-swept. The Kalmyk Steppe is part of the Caspian Depression, a vast, semi-desert landscape where the sky feels impossibly big and the land stretches forever. It is dry, harsh, often desolate, but it is also home. Here, Saiga antelopes sprint across the plains on impossibly spindly legs. Camels graze in the shade of lone acacia trees. Dust devils dance in the heat shimmer. And every so often, a small white yurt rises on the horizon, still used by nomadic herders who maintain traditional ways of life. This desert is not empty. It listens. The wind carries stories from campfires long extinguished. The grasses remember hoofbeats. The stars recall prayers whispered under breath. It is a landscape that favors those who know how to wait, how to listen. During the Soviet era, Kalmyk culture was brutally suppressed. Temples were razed. Monks were imprisoned or killed. The Kalmyk people were forcibly deported to Siberia under Stalin, accused of collaboration, only allowed to return to their homeland after 13 years in exile. When they did return, the land was changed, but so were they. They rebuilt, slowly, with reverence, and the golden abode is more than a place of worship. It is a reclamation of history, of identity, of soul. Today, Elista is home to parks filled with Buddhist statues, stupa-shaped fountains, and quiet meditation gardens. Even the city's chess park, a legacy of its brief stint as the capital of international chess in the 1990s, has touches of Buddhist philosophy carved into stone benches and walls. And beyond the city, among the rolling dunes of the Black Earth Reserve, lies the unexpected, Europe's only true desert. Yes, Russia has a desert. The Chernya Zemlya Black Earth Biosphere Reserve is a protected area of dry grassland and semi-desert, a haven for endangered sago, foxes, steppe eagles, and rare bustards. The land is flat, wind-carved, sunburned, but in spring it explodes with wildflowers, red poppies, purple thistles, golden yellow grasses. It's a transformation so sudden it feels magical. For a few weeks, the desert dreams in color. Then, just as quickly, the flowers fade. The steppe returns to silence, and the cycle continues. To travel through Kalmykia is to experience something rare in Europe, a spiritual landscape that blends the silence of the steppe with the chants of the Dharma. It is not loud, it does not dazzle, but it lingers. In the hush of the temple hall, in the flapping of flags over golden roofs, in the dust rising behind a wandering camel, in the wind across the high plains. Kalmykia reminds us that beauty is not always green or mountainous or cool. Sometimes it is dry, sometimes it is subtle, and sometimes it is golden. In the land where Buddhism met the desert, and exile met return, and silence met faith, Kalmykia endures, not loudly, not proudly, but like the steppe itself, quiet, vast, unshaken. Beyond the northernmost reaches of mainland Russia, past the ice-clogged waters of the Barents Sea, where few ships dare and fewer still return, lies a place almost mythic in its remoteness, a land of rock and glacier, of frozen silence and long-forgotten names, a place where even the map seems hesitant. This is Franz Josef Land, a ghostly chain of more than 190 islands, many unnamed, all locked in Arctic stillness. Few people have ever walked here. Fewer still have stayed. These islands are closer to the North Pole than to Moscow, closer to the great polar void than to any notion of civilization. Discovered in the 19th century during a period of fervent Arctic exploration, they were named not by Russians, but by Austrians after Emperor Franz Joseph I. And yet, despite their foreign name, the islands belong to Russia. Always have. Silent, stark, Siberian in spirit. What you see here is the world stripped bare. The landscape is minimal. Black basalt cliffs, miles of glacial ice, a sea that grinds with icebergs even in summer. There are no trees, no roads, no settlements, just ice and wind, and the low calls of polar seabirds circling cliffs that rise directly from the sea. Franz Josef Land is a sanctuary of extremes. Some of its glaciers are over 500 meters thick. Ice shelves creep to the sea like sleeping giants. In the depths of winter, the sun disappears entirely, leaving only starlight and aurora to pierce the dark. In midsummer, the sun never sets, casting a permanent pale glow on ridges and ridgelines that look untouched by time. There is a haunting beauty here, the kind that comes not from what is present, but from what is missing. The islands are steeped in the history of failed polar expeditions. In the late 19th and early 20th centuries, this was the frontier of Arctic ambition. Ships from Britain, Austria, America, and Russia tried to find the fabled Northern Sea route or reach the North Pole. Many became trapped in ice. Some were never seen again. You can still find remnants of these attempts: rusted sledges, wooden cabins, broken stoves, and messages carved into stone. In some places, explorers' graves lie frozen beneath snowdrifts that have not melted in 100 years. Here, the wind carries their names. Yet life endures. Franz Josef Land is now one of the wildest protected nature reserves on Earth, a vital Arctic refuge within the Russian Arctic National Park. It is home to thousands of seabirds, guillemots, puffins, and ivory gulls, walruses in dens, grunting colonies on rocky beaches, narwhals and belugas moving silently beneath the ice, and most famously, the great white bear, Ursus maritimus, the polar bear. Here, polar bears roam freely. This is their realm, and humans are only passing shadows. To visit is not simple. Permits are required. Guides are essential. Access is limited to a few brief summer months when icebreakers can force a path through the sea. But for those who arrive, scientists, filmmakers, adventurers, it is not just a destination. It is a revelation. There is no place like it in Russia. There may be no place like it in the world. Where else can you stand on the edge of a glacier and see nothing but ice, sky, and possibility? Where else does time feel not just slow, but optional? Franz Josef Land is not a place for comfort. It is a place for clarity. It teaches you what matters when the world is reduced to its coldest essentials. It humbles. It sharpens. It strips you down. And in that bareness, in that white silence, something extraordinary happens. You begin to hear yourself again. This is where the earth still dreams of ice, and where the past still drifts, frozen on the sea. In the far east of Russia, beyond the tundra and across the spine of Kamchatka, there rises a mountain too perfect to be real, a flawless cone of black rock and white snow. Its summit lost in clouds, its flanks furrowed with frozen lava. Its breath, constant, sulphurous, steams into the sky. This is Klyuchevskaya Sopka, Russia's highest volcano, and its most active. Towering at 4,750 meters, Klyuchevskaya Sopka is not just a peak, it is a presence. It dominates the Kamchatka Peninsula, visible from hundreds of kilometers away. Its profile is unmistakable, smooth, symmetrical, and starkly beautiful, like a line drawn between heaven and earth. But this is no sleeping giant. It is awake, always. For centuries, the volcano has erupted regularly, sometimes gently, sometimes with force that shakes the land for miles. Ash plumes soar 10 kilometers into the air. Lava rivers flow down its flanks. Fiery fountains light up the night sky. And yet, despite its power, the volcano is deeply respected by locals, by scientists, by climbers, by the earth itself. Because Klyuchevskaya Sopka is not merely dangerous, it is sacred. The indigenous Idolmen and Koryak peoples of Kamchatka revere the mountain as a living spirit, a guardian, a god. They believe it breathes, that it watches, that it punishes arrogance and rewards humility. Climbers who ascend without reverence are warned, and those who make it to the summit often do not speak of it lightly. Climbing Klyuchevskaya is not a casual endeavor. It is one of the most difficult volcano ascents in the world. The air thins quickly. The slopes are steep, often more than 35 degrees, and slick with ice, ash, and loose volcanic rock. Eruptions can begin with little warning. Poison gases rise invisibly. The weather changes in moments, from blue sky to whiteout. And yet, people climb. For science, for spirit, for the view. At the summit, on a rare clear day, the entire Kamchatka Peninsula stretches below in ridges of green and black and snow, dotted with other volcanoes, each smaller, each asleep or simmering. It is a view of fire held still. Klyuchevskaya is the crown jewel of the Klyuchevskaya group, a volcanic complex that includes over a dozen cones, craters, and calderas. Among them are Izaymiany, a restlessly erupting sibling to the east; Cayman, a jagged, extinct sentinel; Ushkovsky, broad and snow-covered; Tolbachik, whose lava fields we explored in Part 13. Together, they form a volcanic empire, the most concentrated and active in Eurasia, and Klyuchevskaya is its sovereign. Despite its danger, the volcano is a treasure trove for scientists. Its eruptions provide invaluable data on magma movement, tectonics, and ash dispersion. Its activity helps monitor climate patterns and volcanic behavior across the Pacific Ring of Fire, and its isolation preserves the purity of what it teaches. Because here, there is no development, no cities, no highways, just mountains, sky, ash, snow, and the occasional tremor beneath your feet. At night, the mountain often glows. Even in the dead of winter, when temperatures plummet and snow drifts deeper than a man is tall, orange light flickers above the summit. It is a warning. It is an invitation. It is a reminder that the earth is not asleep. Not here. Not yet. Photographers, mountaineers, and volcanologists return again and again, despite the risk, because there is something magnetic about Klyuchevskaya Sopka, not just its symmetry, but its truth. It is raw, elemental power, a visible, physical connection between the planet's heart and its skin. To stand near it is to feel the pulse of the earth. To climb it is to climb not just a mountain, but a myth. To witness its fire is to understand your place in the scale of things, and to respect it is to survive it. Klyuchevskaya Sopka does not belong to Russia, or to climbers, or to maps. It belongs to itself, and to the earth, a breathing monument of fire, a reminder that what lies beneath still shapes what lies above. In the southernmost edge of Russia, where the Caucasus Mountains plunge toward the Caspian Sea, lies a land few tourists ever tread. A place of rugged cliffs, narrow roads, ancient owls, mountain villages, and languages older than most countries. This is Dagestan, one of the most linguistically and culturally diverse regions in the world. And hidden deep within its craggy folds lies a secret more ancient than its towers and older than its poetry. A canyon cut by patience, sculpted by water, forgotten by maps. This is the Sufi Gavinsky Canyon, a narrow gorge of blue-green waters winding between walls of stone so tall they block the sky. The canyon is little known, even within Russia. It doesn't boast famous status or polished infrastructure. It lies quietly in the Akti district, near the border with Azerbaijan, in the southern reaches of Dagestan's highlands. To reach it, you must first navigate hairpin mountain roads, drive along unmarked paths, and then continue on foot, descending carefully into a corridor of water and time. And then suddenly you see it. A river, glowing turquoise under the sun, twisting through sheer limestone cliffs that rise like sentinels overhead. The silence here is deep, and the beauty, unfiltered. The water that shaped this canyon flows from the high mountains, clean, cold, mineral-rich. It carves the stone in delicate curves and powerful drops. In some places, the canyon narrows to just a few meters wide. In others, it opens into sunlit pools, perfect for reflection, literal and spiritual. Fish swim lazily in the clear depths. Moss clings to shaded rock. Tiny wildflowers grow in cracks between cliff faces. Birds will overhead, their cries echoing off stone. And beneath your feet, the rock tells its own story. Layers of sediment stacked over millions of years, each line a record of an age before memory. But this canyon is more than nature. It is history. Near its mouth lies the ancient Owl of Sufi, a remote mountain village perched on a rocky outcrop. Here, homes are built from stone and wood, clinging to the terrain like lichen on granite. The people speak their own dialect, maintain their own customs, and live as they have for generations, by the rhythms of nature, family, and tradition. Elders still wear Chukta's traditional caps. Children climb the canyon walls like goats, and stories pass between generations like the river, quiet, vital, enduring. The name Sufi is thought to come from Sufi, the Islamic mystic tradition, a nod to the region's deep spiritual heritage. And indeed, there is something contemplative about the canyon, something still and sacred. Climbers come here now, those who know. They rappel down rock faces, dive into cold pools, explore narrow side gorges. Photographers chase the golden light that hits the canyon walls just before dusk. But no matter how you enter the Sufi Gabinski Canyon, it greets you with the same response. Quiet. Not indifference, not hostility, just quiet, like a teacher who waits for you to ask the right question. In spring, snowmelt swells the river, and the canyon roars with life. In summer, it's calmer, shimmering beneath intense mountain sun. In autumn, the surrounding trees turn to fire, crimson, amber, gold, casting their reflection into the deep pools below. And in winter, a hush falls. Icicles hang like chandeliers from the cliffs. Snow dusts the ledges, and the water, though slower, never fully stops. It moves in sequence, as it always has, as it always will. The Sufi Gabinski Canyon is not famous. It is not crowded. It does not ask for your attention, but give it your presence, and it will give you something back. A moment, a memory, a sense that even in this vast, distracted world, there are still places that keep the old ways, still places that speak softly and carry deep truths in their silence. To walk its edge is to walk through layers of time. To follow its water is to follow the earth's own handwriting. And to listen here is to remember what it means to truly hear. There are places in the world that are strange. And then there are places that feel like they shouldn't exist. In eastern Siberia, where one expects endless taiga and brutal winters, lies a meeting of landscapes so surreal, so contradictory, it challenges everything you know about geography. Here, in the Zabaikalsky Krai, the white-fanged Kotor Mountains rise like frozen dragons. And below them lies the golden ripple of the Chara Sands, a desert of heat and silence surrounded by forests and snow. Sand and ice, fire and frost, a riddle carved into the earth. We explored the Chara Sands in Part 5, but to understand this place fully, we must now climb higher. We must look from above, because the Kotor Range from which the sands descend is no mere backdrop. It is a titan. Rising to nearly 3,000 meters, the Kotor Mountains are among the most remote and least explored ranges in Russia. Few have climbed their jagged peaks. Fewer still have mapped them in detail. These are true wilderness mountains, untouched, untrailed, and untamed. They are home to Siberia's southernmost glaciers, nestled in cirques and shaded ravines where sunlight rarely lingers. The air is sharp. The stone is black volcanic basalt, fractured and razor-edged. Snow clings to the summits year-round. In the silence, total. This is not a range for recreation. It is a range for reverence. Beneath these mountains lies a valley sculpted by ancient forces, wind, water, and tectonic uplift. And it was here, tens of thousands of years ago, that the Chara Sands were born. Not from drought, not from fire, but from the retreat of glacial meltwater that once pooled in a giant Ice Age lake. As the water drained, it left behind sediment, fine, golden sand. Over time, the wind sculpted it into Barkarn dunes. Now, these dunes stretch for nearly 50 square kilometers, rising and falling like the surface of a sleeping sea. It's difficult to describe the feeling of standing here. To your left, a glacier. To your right, a desert. Ahead, a black mountain rising out of large forest. Below, warm sand slipping through your fingers. Nothing makes sense. And yet everything feels right. In the summer, the sands glow under endless blue sky, ringed by alpine ridges and dark pine. You can walk barefoot across the dunes while snow still clings to the Kotor peaks. The contrast is staggering. In the spring, meltwater feeds small streams through the desert's edge, bringing life, tiny flowers, buzzing insects, animal tracks that vanish with the sun. In winter, the desert does not disappear. It transforms. The snow coats the sand in lace like layers. Wind sculpts waves upon waves, frozen dunes within dunes. It is like walking through a mirage made of frost. To the Evenki people, indigenous reindeer herders and hunters, the region is sacred. The Kotor peaks are home to spirits. The sands are not to be camped on lightly. They speak of the place where the sky touches all things and the landscape supports the myth. Few outsiders know this land well. It is too far, too remote, too elemental. But those who make the journey never forget it. Climbers come for the Kotor's raw beauty and challenge. Scientists come to study the permafrost, the desert, the glacial interactions. Photographers come for that single image, white mountains above golden dunes, and all of them leave with the same truth, that some places are not made to fit categories. This is not a mountain range, not a desert, not a forest, not a tundra. It is all of them, and none. The Kotor Mountains and Chara Sands are Russia at its most surreal, a landscape that writes its own rules, a living contradiction. They do not fit into travel guides or postcard logic. They belong to no one. They obey only the wind. And yet, they stand, year after year, changing, watching. To come here is to leave behind definitions, to walk among ice and heat, to feel both burned and blessed by the land. It is not a place to visit. It is a place to witness. Where else can you climb snow and descend into sand? Where else does the earth refuse to choose one face? Only here, only in Kotor, where Siberia dreams strange and sacred. In the heart of southern Siberia, where mountains kneel to mirror themselves in ancient water, where ice whispers like breath, and the wind carries songs older than language, there lies a lake so vast it defies comparison. This is Lake Baikal, the oldest, the deepest, the clearest, the most profound, a place not just of nature, but of soul. Baikal is more than a lake. It is an abyss of time. Formed 25 million years ago in a massive rift valley, Baikal plunges to depths of 1,642 meters. Its volume surpasses any other freshwater lake on Earth, holding over 20% of the world's unfrozen freshwater supply in one glacial basin. But numbers don't capture its presence, because Baikal doesn't just lie in the land, it radiates from it. It is called the Pearl of Siberia, the Sacred Sea, and by the Buryat people who live along its shores, the Line Nor, the Sacred Lake, and sacred it is. In summer, Baikal is a sapphire mirror. Its waters reflect snow-streaked mountains, green forests, and skies that stretch like hymns. On calm days, it is so clear that you can see 40 meters down, stones resting on the lake bed like memories. On stormy days, it becomes an ocean. Waves crash against rock shores. Gulls scream into the wind, and the lake roars with a voice few lakes can summon. But it is in winter that Baikal becomes transcendent. As temperatures plummet to minus 30 degrees Celsius and below, the surface freezes, but not all at once. The ice grows in sheets, cracks, and slabs. Massive fissures open and shift, moaning with deep, resonant sounds that echo like the breath of the earth. Photographers travel here for this moment to capture the crystal ice. Transparent, turquoise, unbelievable. Cracks form geometric mosaics across the lake's surface, as if nature herself were painting frost mandalas. In some places, bubbles of methane are trapped in the ice, creating constellations beneath your feet. In others, the ice forms towering shards, standing upright like frozen sails in a sea long still. People drive on the ice, camp on it, skate for miles. Shamans walk out alone, following the rhythms of spirit and sky. Travelers lie on their backs and listen, not to noise, but to resonance, because Baikal hums. Yes, literally, the ice makes sound. It sings. But Baikal is not just majestic, it is alive. Over 1,700 species live here, more than half of which are found nowhere else on Earth. Most famous among them is the Nerpa, Baikal's freshwater seal. Chubby, elusive, and impossibly adorable, the Nerpa is one of the only seal species in the world that lives entirely in fresh water. There are also fish found nowhere else, like the translucent Golomyanka, which swims in the abyss and gives birth to live young, and microorganisms that may one day hold cures, secrets, and answers. The lake is flanked by mountains and forests, by legends and light. Volcan Island, its largest, is considered the spiritual heart of Baikal. A place where Buryat shamans still gather to this day, where prayers are tied in colored ribbons to wind-bent trees, and where the sky seems just a little closer. Here you'll find Shaman Rock, a jagged outcrop that rises from the water like a question unanswered for centuries. It is one of Asia's most sacred natural sites. Even those who do not believe feel something when they stand before it. Baikal has been home to poets, monks, scientists, and wanderers. It has inspired art, sparked battles, and anchored belief. But its greatest gift is its stillness. A kind of stillness so vast, it silences even thought. So deep, it makes you forget the noise of the world. So clear, it shows you something not just beneath the surface, but within yourself. To come here is to understand scale, to understand time, to understand humility. Baikal has outlived empires. It has survived ice ages. It may outlive us all, and still it remains, quietly, beautifully, enduringly, alive. At sunset, when the wind calms and the surface turns to molten glass, Baikal becomes what it has always been, a mirror, not just of mountains, not just of stars, but of truth. This is where our journey ends, where silence becomes sacred, and where the earth holds in one place all that it is capable of: mystery, memory, and majesty. Baikal is not a place you go, it is a place you become, and once it touches you, you will never be the same.